Hi, and welcome to this PowerShell quick tip video. In this quick tip video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to use PowerShell and the as-built report module to be able to easily document a bunch of different things in your data center. Now, this is going to save you a lot of time in documentation. Now, of course, you might still have to supplement some extra documentation as it might miss some of the very specific things that you do. But if you're just looking to generate reports on your documentation of your builds for Windows Server, Active Directory, DHCP, and a bunch of other systems, this tool will do a lot of the work for you. So before we actually get started in the code, the website that you're going to want to go to is asbuiltreport.com. Now, this will have a bunch of different information, and if you go to the user guide section of the site, you will see that it has a lot of different report modules. So it has Aruba, Cisco, Dell EMC, Fortinet, Microsoft NetApp, Nutanix, Pure Storage, Rubrik, Veeam, and VMware. And in the Microsoft, you'll have Active Directory, Azure, DHCP, and Windows. We're going to be doing the Windows one today. If you guys want to see anything specific, please let me know in the comment section. If I have the environment that can support making the video, I will make the video for you guys. Of course, there are some things in here that I just don't own, so I wouldn't be able to really show you guys how to generate the report. But I'll be able to show you guys today how to go through the documentation that is on the site and use it to be able to actually then go to the Fortinet one or the Dell EMC or the Aruba and basically be able to read the documentation and be able to go about it on your own. So what I did is I clicked on the Microsoft Windows here, and that will actually bring you to their GitHub page. Now in here, you will have a lot of the different supported versions and a lot of the different nuances to each report. Each report will have different system requirements. As you can see, the Windows Server one, it does support Windows Server 2012, 2016, 2019, 2022, and 2025, but it is limited to supporting Windows PowerShell 5.1. So in this situation, we cannot use PowerShell 7. We will have to use PowerShell 5.1. So just be sure to go through the different documentation and make sure to note what version of PowerShell you actually need to use. It is very important as the different reports do have different system requirements. Now we will see also that it requires a lot of modules, but what's really nice is they actually give us the PowerShell script that we need to install basically all the dependencies that we need, whether you're running this on a Windows server or on a Windows client computer. So we're going to be installing it on a Windows server. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this code here. And then on my Windows server here, we have a PowerShell ISE window, just so it's a little bit easier for you guys to actually see the code. We're just going to paste that in here, and you're just going to want to run this. Now, I've actually already run this. Now, the nice thing about all of these Windows features and modules is your server will not need a restart. It does take quite a few minutes, at least it took quite a few minutes for me. That's why I ran it before recording the video. It took probably about 5-ish minutes to install all of these features and modules. But once you do that, you will be good to go. And then it actually gives you the steps further down on what you actually need to do. So let's go ahead and let's actually just get started here. So the first thing that we need to do for the Windows Server one, for the Windows as built report, is create a JSON file. Now you don't actually need this JSON file. You can run it fully without the JSON file. The JSON file is really just used if you have anything that you would want outside of the defaults. And they actually do go over all the defaults here. So you will have, it will have the table of contents, it will have a header footer, the table captions will be on. So everything there will be basically enabled by default. If you do have a SQL database though, you will want to actually supply the username. Now, again, anything that's going to be stored in a file, you do have to be a little careful. You might just want to put in that information for the couple minutes that you need to run the script and then go ahead and delete that. They do give you the information on how to convert a password to a secure string to be able to paste that in the file. But like I said, and they even mention it here in bold text, that it is a security risk. So if you do it, just be aware, maybe just put that in there for the time that you need to run the report and then just go ahead and take that out. And then they will also show you the info levels for each one. So by default, all of them are enabled. So it goes and checks networking, IIS, Hyper-V, DHCP, DNS, failover cluster, and SQL Server. And then they also give you the maximum level of info for a lot of them. A lot of them by default is just one, and that is the maximum as well. But there are also some options where you can actually turn on a little bit more. And then the health check schema will just check for the health. So actually, before we go any further into this documentation, let's go ahead and let's generate our report config here. So we're going to copy this line here, but we're actually going to go ahead and we're just going to go through the entire line here. So let's go ahead. Let's just zoom out here just a little bit so we can see a little bit better. So we do have the new as built report config, and we do have the report is going to be our Microsoft Windows. And then it's asking us for a folder path of where we want our config. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete my config file here. Now, we actually don't really need to delete it. We could easily just use the force parameter, but I don't want to use the force parameter as if this is your first time running it, you won't have to use the force parameter either. So we're going to put our folder path here for our config. We're going to do that as C users administrator. We're going to put that in documents. We're going to put that in PowerShell, scripts, as built report. And that is the folder path. So you only want to point it to your folder that you'll be pointing it in. And then the file name is optional. I always like to put that in there. So we are going to put the config as the name here, and we are going to go ahead and we are going to run this. And then if we go look in our folder, we will actually see our file here. So we can actually right click on that, open that in Notepad or Notepad++. And here you will see all your different settings here. So we can see all of these health checks are all set to true. And then we will also see the info levels are all set to 1, exactly like the documentation showed. The SQL logins, because I don't have an SQL server on the server, we won't be putting that in. But if you did want to actually add that check, you could easily put that information in there. Like I said, with the secure password, you're only going to want to keep that in there for the time that you're making the report and then just take it out. Because you do not want to keep that in there all the time. All right, so once we have that config file, we can actually go about and actually create our report. Now, one thing about creating the report, you will not be able to do this from the ISE. If we actually go ahead and try to run the new as built report commandlet, we will get an error saying that we need to run it from the terminal or the console. So let's go ahead and let's launch our PowerShell. We do have to make sure to run PowerShell as administrator, as it does need to run in an elevated session here. And let's just go ahead, let's make this a little bit bigger. All right, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and store our credentials, because again, I just don't like putting my credentials in plain text, especially on a YouTube video, but you should not really do that in any situation. So let's go ahead and let's do a get credential and store that to the variable called creds. And here you are going to put your administrator account here. So here I'm going to put my Jacked administrator and put in the password. I'm pretty sure I did a typo there. All right, so now we have that in. And now we're going to go ahead and make the command to build our report. So we're going to do a new dash as built report. Now, once again, there are these examples on the configuration as well. They usually give you quite a few examples. So you don't have to type this out by hand, but we are going to, just because everything else we copy pasted. Not a big fan of that because you don't really get to learn a whole lot. We're going to make a report, and we're going to make our report a Microsoft Windows here. And we're going to specify our target. And our target is going to be our server here. So we're going to do jp hype v 2022.jacked.ca. You're going to want to use the fully qualified name here. It does work a lot better. And again, there are some things in the documentation where they do say that IP addresses don't always work because this does rely on WinRM. So fully qualified names are usually going to be your preferred option. Don't just use the server name. Don't just use the IP address. The fully qualified domain name will work a lot better. All right, and then we're going to do our credentials here. We're going to put the creds. Right, and just gonna see if that's so what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna type out the code on our ISE just because it will let you guys actually be able to see it completely here. So let's go a new as built report. Report is going to be Microsoft Windows. The target is going to be JP hype b2022.jack.ca. And then the credentials is going to be creds. This won't exist in this scenario, but once we paste it into our console, it will. And then our format, now they do offer a lot of different format. They offer a text, Word, and HTML. I personally prefer HTML. I think that Word is great, but if you're running this on server, HTML is going to be very easy to view. Any computer will be able to open that report very easily. Text is going to be a lot harder to kind of see that nice formatting. HTML is just going to look very good, very easy to read, and you don't have to worry about where you are to read it. Anything can really open up an HTML file. So that's the way that I go about that. And then we're going to want to put our output folder path here. So my output folder path, I like to do C users, administrator, and then documents. And then we're going to go ahead and put our report config file path here. So our report config file path is going to be that as built report config. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to just copy the folder path here because I find that's the easiest way to go about that. And then we're going to do a slash and we are going to put the config.json here. And then we are going to do one last thing, which is going to be the file name. Now, this is going to be the file name of our report. So let's go Windows JP hype v 2022 as built reports. All right, and let's go ahead and let's copy this here. And we are just going to go ahead and we're just going to erase all of that and we're going to paste that in here. And we are going to hit enter. And now this is going to ask you for a little bit more information. Now you can actually bypass this by also specifying a as-built report config. What I like to do is I like to run it once. It will actually generate a as-built report config for you as well, which that will include the name of your offer, your company name, and any details that you actually put in here. So let's go put in the name of the offer here. We're going to put in as Jacked Programmer. We're going to put in some company information. So the full company name we're going to put is Jacked Programmer. The short name is going to be Jacked. The company contact, I'm just going to put my name. The email address, we're going to put that in there. And then the phone number, I'm just going to put 123-123-1234. And then the street, the company address, I'm just going to put 123 street. And I'm not going to put an SMTP config. What this does allow you to do, there is a option where you can actually send yourself an email of the report as well. But we're not going to be doing that. And we are going to save the as-built report configuration file. And then here it's going to ask you for a name. The default is as-built report. I'm just going to keep that as the same. And then the path that it offers to save the report as well is just going to be in the documents PowerShell scripts as built report. I'm just going to go ahead and keep that the same as well. And there you go. It's starting to make that documentation here. So we're just going to wait. It usually takes a few minutes, not that long. It'll be done while I'm just talking here. You're going to see it do its thing. It's going to be getting the computer info. It's going to be getting a bunch of different information from our server here. And if we go ahead, we can already see the as-built report JSON file here as well. So once it's all done, once we get back to the screen here, it's going to just allow me to know that we can open that file. I just don't really like opening that file until it is all done. And we can even see here, we have not generated here, and there it is. So there's our HTML file. It just popped up. But if we actually go back here into the as-built report and we open this JSON file, here you're going to see all of our email SMTP configuration. So if you wanted to put that in there for next time, you have all your company information that we put in there. We have our user folder in here as well, and we have our offer. So this is something that you can actually then reuse in that command if you then specify a as-built report config as well. But let's go ahead and let's check that HTML file here. And here is the configuration that it built us. So we have a Microsoft Windows as built report. We can see it is Jacked Programmer. The offer is Jacked Programmer. It gives us the date here, which is Sunday, March 2nd, 2025. It gives us a nice table of contents with hyperlinks. So you can click any of these here and it will bring you. So if I want to go to the Windows firewall, it will bring me directly to the Windows firewall. So that is awesome stuff. So let's just scroll through it a little bit here. So we're going to see the host hardware. So it's actually going to show us the hardware information, including the serial number, the BIOS version, how many CPU cores we have, how much memory we have as well. It's going to tell us what the OS version is as well as the Active Directory domain, the Windows installation date, the time zone, the partial product key, and the license type as well. Any installed updates that we have, as well as missing system updates. So it's going to go check to see if you're missing any updates. It's going to also show you the different drivers that you have installed, as well as the roles that we have. So as you can see, on this server, we do have Active Directory, DNS, Hyper-V, and a web server, which is IIS. We also have some different installed applications here. So we can see that we have Visual Studio Code installed. We have PowerShell 7 and PowerShell Universal installed on this server. We also have a bunch of different services with their status as well. We will also see the local administrators. So anyone that's allowed to administrate the server, we will actually see them here. So we can see the local administrator account here, or the domain administrator account, I should say. And then we also have the domain admins group coming from the domain, and the enterprise admins coming from the domain are allowed to administrate the server. We will see information about the firewall, the different network adapters and the MAC address of them, and the different speeds that we have here. We also have IP address, so we will get the IP addresses and the gateway information of our different networks here, our DNS client, our DNS servers, as well as some different disks. So here's the disks that we have on our server, our different volumes, how much free space we have as well. And then because the server has Hyper-V, we also have our Hyper-V configuration here. And we will even see our management OS adapters, our V switches, as well as our VMs that we have on our Hyper-V box here. So we will see that we have one virtual machine. It is currently off, and then we will actually see the information on that Hyper-V virtual machine. Now, because it's off, we have a 0 uptime. We can see that it's associated 1 CPU, and we associate 2 gigs to the memory startup. And we also have the DVD drive. We can see what the parent snapshot name is as well. So there is a bunch of different things. You can see the VM network adapters, the hard disk as well, the file server information, the SMB, net logon, sysvol, the different permissions. Again, your DNS server options, the forwarder that you have configured, your different zones as well in DNS. And that's just because these are the things that are installed. If you have DHCP, if you have IIS sites configured, if you have SQL Server, you will see all of this information in this report. This will save you a lot of time in creating documentation. And sometimes that is just something that is a very big afterthought in a lot of different companies. And as myself, I am guilty of this as well. You're just moving on to the next task. This would just help you very much build this documentation very quickly. So if you do have to spin up another server, you will have that exact build that you had. You won't have to try to remember how many CPUs you had assigned to the server, especially if you're building virtual servers, or how much memory you had assigned, what operating system you had, what were the different softwares you had installed, what were the different services that you had running. This will make it very, very simple, or what IP address you had configured to the network card, what were your DNS settings as well. All of that will be stored there and very, very easy to use. So now if we wanted to reuse that as built config, and now if we use one of the tricks that we learned in a previous video here, if we do a control space, we will see that we can specify that as built config file path. So if we do this here, and then we go ahead and we reference our C users, administrator, documents, PowerShell scripts, as built report, and as built report JSON. If we go ahead and we run this, it's not going to ask us any questions this time about what your offer name is, what the SMTP, what the company name is, because you've put in all that information once before and saved it to that JSON file. You can just go ahead and use that JSON file, which makes it a whole lot faster to generate reports after the fact. So let's say you've made a as-built report right away when you built this server. You go ahead and you install a bunch of new roles, or you do some updates. You technically would want a new as-built report because now it's changed. So you would just reference those JSONs. This way you don't have to keep typing in your company name, your name, the SMTP if you want to use the email. It just makes it a whole lot easier. And like I said, there are a whole lot of different options here. If you go to asbuiltreport.com, now this isn't a sponsored video by any means, but I will put the link in the description down below. There is options for FortiGates, ClearPass, Cisco UCS Manager, Veeam, VMware if if you're using vSphere, ESXi, Site Recovery Manager, like I said, there's a bunch of different documentations that you can build here. So it is a very useful tool, especially if you work in IT or if you just have something at home that you've built in a little home lab and want to practice again more PowerShell skills, or maybe you just want to actually document what you've built. This way, if you do ever need to blow it away and rebuild it, you know exactly how it was built. This is a perfect module for you. If you guys liked this video, please let me know in the comment section down below. Like I said, if you guys would like to see a specific as built report, please let me know in the comment section down below as well. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Also, be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.